Adam, welcome to another Monday. Grateful for you to join me today again. And today we are talking about something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is AI tools, but not just AI tools that actually work, and ones that we have experience using in our daily lives and implementing. So, welcome, Adam.
Yeah, happy to be here. And you and I share that in the fact that we really enjoy helping small businesses, even one-person solopreneurs with these types of things, and not to mention the fact that AI is very cool, and we both enjoy that too. So, yeah, would love to talk more about that, and I think we're going to take it at an angle of maybe tasks and or responsibilities within a business that you can utilize tools that you and I have both used, and you and I have both done research on and had
Yes.
experience with that.
Yeah, I think it's really for us. It's getting down to, like, I don't like to talk about big tools that some big company is going to implement.
Hmm.
I like to get down to brass tacks and, like, what tactically can we really do? What's going to move us from that vision of what they say they can do to, no, actually, it actually works and
Sure,
it actually offloads and doesn't just create more work for me.
sure.
So I think we got some topics set up. So Adam, you want to introduce our first topic and kind of discussion point?
Absolutely. And I think it's a very interesting task and or responsibility within a lot of small businesses that have a an actual phone number that people call into. There are AI tools out there that can essentially be your your front desk person to answer calls, not as a human, but as an AI tool. So I've used um, I've used a couple tools. One would be HeyGen to do this, Heygen, um, and I've even kind of created a workflow through another tool called 11 Labs that essentially would clone your voice. Let's just say it's a business owner, solopreneur who um, wants to have their voice on the other line talking, and then implement that with HeyGen. So what typically happens is you upload an FAQ, either a document or type in the prompts. Um, hey, what are your business hours? Upload that answer, that question, that answer, all those different things, and then the AI tool answers it on the phone. It also can do scheduling. It also can do a lot of different tasks, but those top two, I would say, answering FAQs, frequently asked questions, and then doing some of the scheduling where sometimes it has to be an email back and forth,
Mhm.
or hey, go to my website, look what's available, and then register, and then I'll get an email about it, and then I'll send you an email about it to confirm. It can be all done online, or excuse me, with an AI tool, and then that AI tool can then essentially either text or email that confirmation of your appointment's at this time on this day. Whatever. Please
So
show up 15 minutes early.
let's maybe pull back a little bit for those entrepreneurs or small business owners that are saying, "Wait a second, what do I do with my front desk person?"
Yep.
No, I've got a front desk person. What
Hmm.
do I do with them? And aren't people going to kind of rebel and be like, "Wait a second, that's just a automated AI answering service"?
Sure. I think there is definitely some worry about that. We do have, I've talked to people who um, have had that worry, and I think that with anything, with the internet, with anything in between the days of the first internet to now, it's going to take some time to for everybody to be okay with this, to get on board with this, because you're exactly right. Um, I compare it to like an automated phone service that you can tell is, automated, and, hit zero to talk to a representative, those types of things where they're not the greatest, uh, they're not the greatest to actually deal with as a customer. But, I will say that in my experience, the tools that I just mentioned are very lifelike. Not
Mhm.
that that is something that hey, there are things where you can kind of tell that it is an AI tool or not a human being, but they do a great job. As we've talked about in previous talks, they're not perfect. They're definitely not perfect, but they are getting very, very close to it, where all these tasks and all these things are um, are lifelike, I would say. Now, what I've talked to founders, what I've talked to some of my customers and clients about is that, hey, yes, you probably do have a front desk person. A lot of the a lot of the business owners that I've talked to that I've worked with have a hard time keeping those people within their company. It either doesn't work out, or hey, they find something else. A lot where maybe the front desk job is just kind of a placeholder or a gap filler.
Mhm.
So it can fill in after that happens, and or I'm sure your front desk person has different, um, has a lot of different skills that they can utilize while they're not on the phone.
Yeah.
And so, hey, will it replace your front desk person if all they do is answer the phone? Maybe, but in a lot of the businesses that I've worked with, that's not the case. Um, and to be honest, especially in these days, not a lot of people like to talk on the phone.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
taking that away from somebody would maybe even be a benefit for them, and something that they're like, yeah, I don't have to talk on the phone. That's great.
So
Yeah, so those are things that I would kind of, I guess, combat your question with.
here's the two other, I guess, one question, one point.
Hmm.
So can it also, if you're working off text messages or emails,
Hmm.
can it handle those things? If you've already put in, your frequently asked questions and how to route things or things like that.
Sure, there are other tools that will do that. Um, I am blanking on the name, but essentially what would happen is you create a AI, will say employee with an email address. Let's say you name him Ed. You copy Ed on all of your emails, and then Ed, the AI tool, will respond to that. Will respond to these emails immediately if Ed can answer those questions or schedule something. So there are different AI tools. I don't know for sure if HeyGen has those tools. There are actually a couple that I want to talk to later on about different responsibilities and tasks that would definitely
Okay.
do that for you. I'm blanking on the one that I have done a lot of research on right now as far as the name goes.
It's all good.
Yep,
We can, drop it in the comments below the video later.
sure.
So my second comment, and this is around that idea that, we're taking that job away from folks.
Hmm.
And this is actually my case for AI, is that AI is able to do those things that frankly are not like are not that value add. It may
Hmm.
be at some point, but we're going to find more and more use cases of what AI can do, and we're going to be able to shift it off. Now,
Hmm.
AI is not going to be able to do 100% of those things. So what it's really doing is it's freeing that front desk person up to do things that are more valuable.
Exactly.
And that's the way I think small businesses really need to look at this, is not a, oh, well, now I don't have to hire somebody. It's, oh, now that person that was like kind of stuck at the phone and not didn't probably didn't really love answering the phone every day.
Hmm.
80 to 90% of those phone calls are automated now. And now that person can be freed up to be challenged in other ways to grow with the business and to help the
Hmm.
business and do things that you really need done. And frankly, you don't want to maybe lose the experience that they have.
Sure. Yep. And like I said, a lot of these individuals, employees who work at the front desk have different skills that I'm sure they want to use, and I'm sure they want to um, add value in different ways, but also expand those skills. And
Yeah.
this is a perfect reason to do that, or an easier way to say, yeah, you can go work on these things because hey, I have somebody or something to answer the phone for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's
Um,
fantastic. So, hey, Jen, is
yep,
a good one.
11 Labs. Hey Jen, two more tools that I've done some research on, haven't honestly used them. One would be Zapier. They make an agent that does this. I think Zapier makes an agent that does everything, so that's probably
Zapier
just
does
a
just about everything. Yeah.
that's
We'll get into that one later.
that's probably a pretty stock answer for everything we talk about. But the other one would be Smith.ai. So
Hmm.
Smith.ai would do something very similar to this as well.
Okay.
So have done research on those two things, but have not personally used those.
Okay. All right. So, our next subject. You want to introduce that one?
Sure thing, sure thing. Every business needs sales, need to sell things, need to find customers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so there are a couple of tools that I've used and I'm coupling this kind of with recruiting as well, because I've
Mhm.
used these tools for recruiting, but they can definitely be a sales mechanism as well, to I mean essentially find you customers and help you communicate with those customers. So the number one and maybe number two, Apollo.io and
Mm.
pin.com. So PIN word would be one and two that I've used for this. Um,
Mm.
I will do my best to explain this. So essentially, what you do with Pin and Apollo is you give it, if you're recruiting or if you're doing sales, you give it your ideal customer profile or a job description and say, hey, you go out and find these people. Um,
Mm.
they scrape the internet, whether it be LinkedIn, whether it be, wherever they find this stuff, they get contact information, email, phone numbers. Um, you can essentially then drop those people into what they call a sequence. So an example would be, I tell it to go find somebody, they find Aaron's information. Hey, I want you to say, when you find Aaron's information, I'm dropping him into a sequence. Send him a LinkedIn message on day one. If he does not respond for 2 days, then send him a LinkedIn connection request. After he accepts that, send him an email because we found his email address on what I offer, the job I have, whatever. And then if he doesn't respond in 3 days, then I want another email. They're even starting to be able to make calls, as well as what we just talked about. But then you can keep that person in a sequence. So hey, you try to connect. I try to connect with Aaron 3 or 4 times. Um, he doesn't respond. So then, hey, you push that out for 6 months. Then in 6 months, I want you to reconnect with him. Um, it does all the writing of emails and LinkedIn messages as you
Wow.
prompt it to. It also has the option for you to write these, so it doesn't have to be AI. You can write these, but essentially throwing them that profile into a sequence of do this, do this, do this, and it happens automatically. So if like I said, if it's been 1 or 2 days and Aaron has not responded, you go down and you say, okay, if he hasn't responded, send this out, or send an email or send a connection request. And so getting them in the sales funnel, those two are probably the top two. That number one I've used, and number two, they are very, very intuitive and very, very good tools to use. So getting them in the sales funnel, those two is what I would recommend.
Wow. That's just a whole new way to prospect.
Hmm.
I mean, now whether you're talking about sales, whether you're talking about recruiting for hiring,
Yep.
that's
And and
that's just amazing.
it can definitely be good and bad, because as you would probably guess, there are some people who that's why you get all these LinkedIn messages every day.
Yeah.
That's how it happens, and that's just the way things are going, and it makes things easier, which that's what AI does. But really using it the correct way, not creating those communications that seem very, very, salesy or spammy, but really connecting with your potential customers and
Yeah.
potential people that accept jobs or would be a good fit for your job is the way to go with that.
It strikes me that, once again, we've talked about this before. We're getting to that as we roll more and more into this, there's
Hmm.
going to be some pushback. And I think we're going to be forced to kind of figure out that balance between AI and human,
100%.
and what people are really willing to accept and where it fits the best. Right now, it's honestly, it's the wild west of AI, I call it. This is like probably 98 till probably 2002, I think was the wild west of the internet. And
Hmm.
maybe 96, 2002, but where it was just like everybody was just throwing stuff out there, seeing what sticks, and you see the same thing. Only I think there's a whole heck of a lot more money being dumped into this now than there was back in the internet age.
Yep, I think you're right. And with as far as the profession of like sales or account executive and profession of recruiting, I've said plenty of times in our conversation, Aaron, I think that it will not Eventually, maybe, but in the near future, it will not replace those recruiters. It will not replace those salespeople. It'll take things off their plate to make them more efficient if we grasp this stuff and if we utilize it in the right way, to make, well, like I said, our salespeople and our recruiters more efficient, and essentially make their job easier for them.
To me, what it's going to do is it's going to make that human connection even more valuable,
Important, yeah.
more important, which in some ways makes a lot of sense because now, right now it's you can automate all of these things, but it's like, I don't know about you, but when I actually get a human on the phone for, calling in for something, you're like, wow, I got
Yeah.
a human being that I can just talk to and like get stuff done. And I wonder how much of that is going to happen, that kind of back and forth, until, and as companies start to figure out the right spot to have it. And even now you're starting to get companies that are like, you can't necessarily tell
Hmm.
if it's human or AI. And that's kind of the point to it, I think, in the end. That's kind of a scary point to get to, but it's also, it's a freeing point
Yep.
because, and I was just telling somebody else I was talking to earlier today about this, that it's really about that force multiplier, that freeing up humans, to do what humans can uniquely do. Oh, oh, looks like we lost Adam for a second. He'll come back in here in a minute. But it's really, to me, it's about freeing up humans to do what humans can uniquely do, and then allowing other humans to kind of weigh in on, well, do I still want a human to do that? All right, there you are. You're back with us. All right, we
And
lost you for a second there.
I'm back. You know, I was listening. I wasn't on camera, but I was listening. And I think you're right of the fact that it is going to be a force multiplier for some companies that embrace this. And you know, will it take jobs? We talked about this. Yes. I can't exactly remember who it was, but I read an article. I think actually just yesterday that some larger companies laying off about 11,000 workers because they
Accenture.
Accenture, that's what it
Yep.
was because of the AI boom and the obviously digital workforce now is what they're calling it. And so, like I said, will it affect some jobs? 100%. Um,
Your
mm,
your microphone is kind of up and down a little bit.
oh, sorry, gosh,
Oh,
how's that?
that's good.
Good. Okay, sorry about that. And it is going to affect some workforces, some employees, and
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that these people who are affected, uh, you know, are finding something else, but also, realizing why it's affecting them and, you know, improving and embracing some things that maybe they haven't in the past and trying to make their marketability as a team member, as an employee, increase that and make it better with the tools that we have now.
Yeah. And I think this is one of the things that small and medium-sized business owners absolutely have to understand is that the game has just completely changed with AI. If you are not looking at how to implement AI, where you can implement it, such as HeyGen or any of these others where you can use it as a force multiplier, you are going to be left behind because you're right now is a great time to start getting ahead. And that's exactly what you and I both do is step in, help companies not only organize what they have, but then identify those areas that you can bring this in or this in or this in right away. And in 3 months we can free up 70% of this front desk person's time. And and they can start focusing on other things.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of those other things, some of those other tools, was your third subject you wanted to bring in here today?
Sure. Well, I think the third subject would just be I would love to talk to you about, you know, a I guess agentic AI overall. I mean, but you mentioned before we started recording that you just started to use Zapier a little bit,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
and would love to talk to you about your experience with that. I think I've utilized Manus a little bit, not to the
Mm.
extent of what I would like to, but I think that's another one we can discuss and chat a little bit about what you found has worked there and why you may have told me that you love it.
Well, okay. So this gets into really the root of some of the. I've been doing a lot of evaluation on automation, on the tools to use. And of course, the company I work with, we are all Microsoft. So I've been looking a lot at Copilot Studio, about the Power Automate platform, which is a tremendous platform. And it can do like everything within the Microsoft realm. And it has a lot of connectors and stuff, but I'm getting just some like feedback from you there.
I
You
hear that
noticing
too.
it?
I hear that too. Sorry.
Oh,
I just can't figure this out, Aaron.
there we go. Okay, so Copilot, Power Automate are phenomenal. But the problem I have is that they get a little technical, and as soon as you dive a little bit deeper, it starts to get really technical, and there's a really steep learning curve. And so for me, like I've done some Power Automates, I've done some things that like, yeah, it's certainly helped, but I'm one that's like, oh, I want to take it like to 10x. And whenever I do that, it's like, oh man, I'm really pushing that learning curve really hard, and I like can't quite get there. So I dove into a number of others, one being Lindy.ai, which was phenomenal. I did like a whole week of Lindy training, and they have some great stuff they can do. And they can automate the call stuff. And what it
Yep.
is just workflow automations that have a lot of connectors. The challenge I had was I wanted a few more connectors, and I'm like, well, I've heard a lot about Zapier, and it's kind of the granddaddy. It's been around for a long time.
Right.
And so I also then, this last week started into Zapier. And both Lindy and Zapier, you can type in. It uses LLM to go in and it will create what you want. And you can
Yeah.
talk to it and it'll go through and test things and make sure it's built properly. So for me, that alone takes away some of that. Like I want to do deeper things, but I don't know like all the 3,000 or whatever, 8,000 connectors they have. It knows those. It can help me reason through which ones to use. And in fact, not just reason through, it'll create it. And if it doesn't work, it'll try something different. And so I don't need to know all of those specifics. So one of the things that I created that I wanted to create is I use Plod, which is a little AI note pin, like a pin that I stick on my collar and it records. And then it'll take, and there's an app that it'll sync with, and then it'll kick out a transcription with note summaries. So I'll use it for networking and meetings and things that I may not have, may not be recording on Teams or something. And one of the challenges I have is, I always have to go in and click download transcript, and then I push it over into ChatGPT. Well, they end up in my OneNote. And so what I wanted is I wanted to take it from once it gets translated in Plod, I wanted to push it through AI and drop that into my OneNote. With Zapier, I was able to do that. So now when I record something, once I get done transcribing it in Plod, it will automatically go through Claude 4.0, which is the one that I like, the Claude Sonnet 4.0, the best, and then it'll drop that right into my OneNote. Now, there were some things I had to set up to make that work, not only the Zapier, but I also had to set up Claude with the API and actually, fund it with some money because it costs, I think, with 4.0, I think it costs maybe 15 cents, 14, 12 cents, something like that, every time I send it over. I could use Google or others and it would cost me 2 or 3 cents, but it's the one I like best. So that manual process that I used to have to run, I can now, it just runs automatically. You know, and things like Lindy, I had it go in to my email and it labeled everything for me. So now whenever a new email comes in, it labels things and it has folders created on the side. So I can much more quickly go through and see what do I actually need to respond to. Oh, and then also Zapier, I went in and created an auto reply. So on emails that I need to actually send a response to, it will auto create a draft for me with a response. Which, you know, I mean, you can do sort of the same thing with Copilot. In fact, I think you can do the same thing with Copilot, but it was just so much easier to set up in Zapier. So that's been my experience and like the three big things that I've done with it so far in honestly a week and a half of using it. So it's pretty phenomenal and user friendly. But if you're in Microsoft, you know, like we have a third party that we work with for Microsoft. Oh, looks like we lost him again. We are just having challenges today. So let's pause our live for just a moment and we'll come right back. Maybe we won't. Looks like maybe we are just having some internet connectivity issues, so hopefully that's not too widespread. All right. Yeah, it definitely looks like we're good on my end. I'm not sure what's going on with Adam yet. But yeah, it's been a great conversation so far about AI and just the tools for small to medium-sized businesses that can make a real impact, you know, on your day. And these are not, you know, obviously you're not familiar with them. You can absolutely reach out to Adam or myself. We can help you walk you through these. We've been through a lot of different tools and obviously used many of them. All right, let's see what's going on with Adam here. All right, he is having internet issues today. Well, let's go ahead and let's just end this today right here. It's been great with all of you. Thank you so